And, too many people are waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for the right feeling, waiting for that spark of motivation to light them up so they can finally take action. But let's be brutally honest. If you're waiting for motivation, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Winners don't wait for that spark. They create systems, they design routines, and they build habits that pull them forward even when they don't feel like moving. Motivation comes and goes. But habits build empires. Let's break this down into 6 powerful truths. Let's talk about something most people never want to admit. Motivation is fleeting. It's fragile. It's unreliable. And yet, so many of us treat it like the golden ticket to success. We think once I feel motivated, then I'll get serious about my health. Once I feel motivated, then I'll start the business. Once I feel motivated, then I'll change my life. But let me ask you a hard question. How often has waiting for motivation actually gotten you where you want it to go? How many times did you feel the spark one day, and then 3 days later, you couldn't even find it anymore? That's the problem. Motivation is like a match. It flares up bright, but unless you've built something solid underneath it, habits, routine systems, that flame burns out fast. And here's the truth: the people you admire, the ones you look at and think, whoa, they've built something extraordinary. They're not living on some endless stream of motivation. They don't wake up every morning with violins playing and fireworks going off, ready to conquer the world. No, most days they're like you. They're tired. They're stressed. They don't feel like it. But here's the difference: that they've built habits that don't require them to negotiate with themselves every single day. Think of it this way. If you had to decide every single morning whether you should brush your teeth, chances are you'd skip it sometimes. But brushing your teeth isn't up for debate. It's a habit. It doesn't matter how tired you are or what mood you're in. You just do it. And because you just do it, your teeth stay healthy. Now imagine if working on your body, your business, your personal growth, your finances, your relationships, imagine if those weren't optional either. Imagine if they were as automatic as brushing your teeth. How much further would you be? That's the game winners are playing. See, motivation is about feelings. Habits are about identity. Motivation whispers, I feel like doing this right now. Habits declare, this is who I am, so this is what I do. Motivation says, I'll do it when I feel ready. Habits say, I do it because that's what I do, ready or not. That's why habits are permanent. Because they stop being about whether you're inspired in the moment and start being about the kind of person you are becoming. Now let's dig deeper. Why does motivation fail us? The psychology is fascinating. Your brain is hardwired to seek comfort and avoid pain. Motivation comes when your brain perceives a big enough reward on the other side of discomfort. That's why you get that burst of energy after watching a motivational video or hearing a powerful story. Your brain floods with dopamine, that feel-good chemical that says, yes, go for it. But dopamine spikes are temporary. The high fades and suddenly the effort feels heavy again. That's why so many people ride the roller coaster starting strong and then crashing. It's not that they're weak. It's that they were trying to build their future on a chemical state instead of a solid structure. Habits, on the other hand, bypass this entire roller coaster. They don't require you to renegotiate with your brain every day. A well-built habit becomes a neurological shortcut. At first, it takes effort to form, just like pushing a heavy boulder up a hill. But once you get that boulder over the peak, gravity takes over. The habit starts rolling on its own. That's when the magic happens. When doing the thing feels easier than not doing it. And if you've ever tried to break a deeply ingrained habit, you know exactly how powerful that momentum is. Now let's ground this in reality. Let's say you want to get fit. You're excited. You buy the gym membership. You pick out the workout clothes. For the first week, you're crushing it. But then one morning, you wake up tired. Motivation whispers, skip it today. You deserve a break. And if your commitment was based only on motivation, you'll believe that voice. You'll say, I'll go tomorrow. And you might not. But here's the kicker: every time you skip, because you don't feel motivated, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who needs to feel inspired to take action. And that identity will sabotage you every time. Contrast that with someone who builds the habit. They don't negotiate with themselves. It's Tuesday at 7 a.m., and that means gym, period. They may not feel like it, but they've trained themselves to recognize that feelings aren't the deciding factor, the habit is. And because the habit is non-negotiable, results compound. And over time, the results themselves start to feed motivation. That's the paradox. You stop waiting for motivation, and in doing so, you create more of it. Now, let's talk philosophy for a moment. Ancient Stoic thinkers like Epictetus, And Marcus Aurelius understood something modern science has only confirmed: emotions are fleeting, unreliable guides. They believed the good life wasn't about chasing the feeling of motivation, but about living by principles and disciplines that anchored you no matter the storm. That's what habits are, your modern day disciplines. They're the structures that free you from being a slave to your moods. Winners don't leave their destiny in the hands of whether they feel like it. They build systems that make the right action inevitable, regardless of feeling. And here's something most people miss: habits don't just shape what you do. They shape what you believe about yourself. Every time you act in line with a habit, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. Skip the workout, you cast a vote for being someone who skips. Show up, even when it's inconvenient, you cast a vote for being disciplined, committed, unstoppable. Over time, those votes add up. And eventually, you don't just have habits, you have a new identity. And once your identity changes, motivation becomes irrelevant. You don't need to feel like working out. You're an athlete. You don't need to feel like working on your business. You're an entrepreneur. That's just what you do. Now let's get real. Habits aren't glamorous at first. They're not sexy. Nobody claps for you when you choose a salad instead of fast food. Nobody's cheering when you go to bed early instead of scrolling your phone. There are no fireworks when you read 10 pages of a book every day. But here's the truth: the world you want, the future you dream of, is being quietly constructed by the choices nobody sees. The little daily decisions that stack up into an extraordinary life. And while the crowd is waiting for lightning bolts of motivation, winners are quietly, consistently laying brick after brick, until one day they're standing in a fortress of success that looks like it appeared overnight. But in reality, it was built by habits all along. So the next time you catch yourself waiting for that perfect burst of motivation, stop. Recognize it for what it is: a fleeting emotion, not a strategy. Instead, ask yourself, what's one small habit I can build today that, repeated 1,000 times, would change everything? Because you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. And that's why winners don't wait. They don't cross their fingers hoping they'll feel inspired tomorrow. They take control today. They decide, this is who I am. These are my habits. This is my future. And I'll leave you with this thought: motivation is the spark, but habits are the fire. If you build the fire, you'll never be left in the dark. Now let's take this even deeper. If motivation is temporary and habits are permanent, the question becomes, what kinds of habits actually create change? And here's where so many people get it wrong. They think transformation requires some massive, dramatic overhaul of their life. They imagine that in order to get fit, they need to spend 2 hours a day in the gym. In order to build wealth, they need to start 3 businesses and work 80 hours a week. In order to improve relationships, they need to completely reinvent themselves overnight. And when the vision feels that big, they don't even start. But let me tell you the true thing: real, lasting transformation rarely begins with grand gestures. It starts with small, consistent actions that seem almost too insignificant to matter in the moment. But repeated day after day, they create a tidal wave of change. Think of a plane taking off from Los Angeles. If the pilot adjusts the nose of that plane by just a couple of degrees, you won't notice the difference in the first few miles. But stay on that trajectory for hours, and instead of landing in New York, you'll find yourself in Washington, D.C., or maybe even Boston. That's the power of small adjustments. In the beginning, they look invisible. But over time, they completely alter your destination. That's exactly how habits work. You may think 10 minutes of reading a short daily walk, setting aside a small percentage of your income, or starting your morning with gratitude doesn't really matter. But stack that habit, repeat it daily, and you'll be amazed at the shift. 10 minutes of reading becomes several dozen books in a few years. A short walk daily adds up to hundreds of miles. A little savings each week grows into financial security. Small hinges swing big doors. Now let's be real. We live in a world addicted to speed. We want instant gratification. We want the 6-pack in 6 weeks, the $1 million in a month, the relationship of our dreams by the weekend. And when results don't show up on our timeline, we quit. But life doesn't reward instant gratification. It rewards consistency. Nature itself shows this. Think about bamboo. For the first 5 years after it's planted, you see almost nothing above ground. But under the soil, it's spreading roots, building a foundation. Then suddenly, in one season, it can grow over 80 feet. People look at that and say, wow, overnight success. No, it was 5 years of unseen consistency, then one season of visible results. Your life works the same way. Psychology backs this up. Behavioral science tells us that the brain loves repetition. The more often you repeat a behavior, the stronger the neural pathways for that behavior become. Think of it like carving a groove into a piece of wood. The more times you carve the same line, the deeper and easier the path becomes. That's why small habits matter, because they compound. At first, you don't even notice the difference. But then, one day, the groove is so deep that your actions slide into it effortlessly. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people with the same goal to be healthy. The first person decides to overhaul their life, cutting all sugar, working out intensely 7 days a week, running on discipline and the fire of motivation. For the first 2 weeks, they're crushing it, but then fatigue sets in. Their body resists. Life gets, because the system was too extreme, it collapses. They quit, and they go right back to where they started, often feeling worse because they failed. Now look at the second person. They start with something small. Maybe it's drinking an extra glass of water in the morning. Maybe it's walking for 15 minutes after dinner. That doesn't sound revolutionary. But then they add another small habit. Stretching before bed. Then a short workout twice a week. 6 months later, they've created a lifestyle. Their identity has shifted. They didn't need the roller coaster of motivation. They built a staircase of habits, one step at a time. And that staircase leads to a place the other person will never reach, because they tried to jump instead of climb. Philosophically, this principle is profound. The ancients taught it in different ways. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. Notice he didn't say excellence is a feeling or a flash of motivation. It's repeated action. It's the small daily practices that shape a life of greatness. Eastern philosophy echoes this. The Tao Te Ching says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Not a leap, not a sprint, a step. Small, consistent, deliberate. And here's the beauty. When you commit to small habits, you trick your brain. You bypass resistance. Because let's face it, when you tell yourself, I'm going to radically change my life starting tomorrow, your brain screams, too much, too dangerous, stay in the comfort zone. That's the survival wiring kicking in. But when you say, I'm just going to do 5 minutes today, the brain relaxes. It doesn't see it as a threat. And once you start, momentum kicks in. 5 minutes becomes 10. 10 becomes 30. The small habit you once thought insignificant becomes the very thing that transforms you. Now, let me ask you a question. What if you committed to 1% better every day? Just 1% doesn't sound like much. But mathematically, do you know what happens? If you improve by just 1% daily, by the end of a year, you're not 365% better. You're 3778%er. That's the power of compounding. It's like interest in a bank account. At first, it looks like nothing. But over time, it multiplies beyond belief. This is why winners don't obsess over radical change in a moment. They obsess over small, consistent actions that compound. It's not about running a marathon tomorrow. It's about putting on your shoes today. It's not about saving $1 million this month. It's about saving 10% of your paycheck right now. It's not about writing the entire book this weekend. It's about sitting down and writing 1 page today. Those pages add up. That savings grows. Those workouts reshape your body and your energy. And here's something else. Small habits just create results. They build confidence. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, you reinforce the belief that you can be trusted to follow through. That's huge. Because most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because they don't trust themselves anymore. They've broken so many promises to themselves that their word carries no weight. But when you say, I'll just do 5 push-ups today, and you do it, you're rebuilding that trust. And when you trust yourself, you become unstoppable. So let's be clear. Small doesn't mean insignificant. Small is powerful. Small is sustainable. Small is the seed that becomes the oak tree. You want a massive life. Plant small seeds daily. Water them. Nurture them. Be patient. Because greatness isn't built in one dramatic act. It's built in the quiet moments of discipline, repeated until become unstoppable momentum. And I want you to reflect on this. The life you're living right now is the sum of your past habits. The choices you made daily over the last 5, 10, 20 years led you here. If you like where you are, great. Keep going. If you don't, blame your lack of motivation. Start planning new habits today. Because the choices you make daily from this moment forward will create the life you'll be living 5, 10, 20 years from now. So don't underestimate the small. Don't dismiss the daily. Don't wait for the dramatic. Start where you are with what you can do and build from there. Because the small steps you take today will lead you to a place tomorrow that looks nothing like where you are right now. And I'll leave you with this. Massive change doesn't happen when you do something big once. It happens when you do something small consistently, until it becomes impossible to stop. Now let's talk about something most people overlook when they're trying to change their lives. You can build small habits. You can set the right intentions. You can even be disciplined for a while. But if you're living in an environment that pulls you back to old patterns, you will eventually lose. Why? Because environment is stronger than willpower. People often blame themselves for not sticking to a habit. They say, I'm just not disciplined enough. I don't have enough self-control. But the truth is, it's not that you're broken. It's that you're fighting battles in an environment that was designed for you to lose. And I'll tell you this, you can have the strongest intention in the world, but if every time you open your fridge, it's loaded with junk food, your willpower is on trial every single time you get hungry. You can want to cut back on distractions, but if your phone is buzzing with notifications 200 times a day, you're asking your brain to fight a war it's not wired to win. Think of willpower like a muscle. The more you use it, the more it fatigues. And when it's gone, you default to whatever's easiest. That's why designing your environment is critical. The most successful people aren't the ones with endless willpower. They're the ones who set up their lives so that the right choices are the easiest choices. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people want to read more. One keeps a book by their bed, on the coffee table, even in their bag when they travel. Every time they see the book, it's a cue, pick it up, read a page. The other person keeps their book buried on a high shelf in the closet. Guess who's going to finish more books this year? Not because they have more willpower, but because their environment gives them constant reminders and easy access. This isn't theory. Behavioral science has proven it. There's a principle called choice architecture. The idea that the way options are presented influences the decisions we make. Grocery stores put candy near the checkout because they know you'll be tempted in that moment of waiting. That's environment shaping behavior. Restaurants list the most profitable items at eye level on the menu because they know you'll see them first. That's environment shaping behavior. It's not about you being weak. It's about the structure around you guiding your decisions without you even realizing it. So let's get practical. If you want to eat better, don't fill your house with junk food and pray for willpower. Don't keep ice cream in the freezer and think you'll somehow resist it at midnight. Create an environment that makes it easier to succeed than to fail. Stock your fridge with healthy options. Put fruit in a bowl on the counter. Make the default choice the one that aligns with your goals. If you want to work out more, don't keep your workout clothes buried in the back of your closet. Put them out where you can't ignore them. Better yet, go to bed already dressed in your workout gear if you have to. If you want to spend less time scrolling on your phone, don't keep it glued to your hand. Set up app blockers, put it in another room, or charge it far away from your bed so you're not tempted to scroll at midnight. Here's the key: design your environment so success is the path of least resistance. Winners aren't magically more motivated. They're just better architects of their lives. They build surroundings that push them forward instead of pull them back. Now let's go a little deeper. Your environment isn't just physical. It's also social. The people you surround yourself with are part of your environment, and they are either building your habits or breaking them. You know this. If you hang out with people who eat junk, complain constantly, and never push themselves, you will unconsciously pick up those habits. Not because you want to, but because humans are wired for belonging. We mirror the people around us. On the flip side, spend time with people who are disciplined, who challenge themselves, who live with passion and purpose, and you'll find yourself naturally rising to their level. Not because you suddenly have more motivation, but because your environment has shifted. You've raised your standards by changing your circle. I'll give you an example. A study tracked groups of people trying to quit smoking. Those who surrounded themselves with friends who also quit were far more successful than those who tried to quit while still hanging around smokers. It wasn't about willpower. It was about environment. The identity of the group became their identity. The same applies to fitness, to business, to personal growth. You will rise or fall to the expectations of the environment you choose. And there's a philosophical layer here too. Look at nature. A plant's potential is limited by its environment. Put a plant in a small pot and it will only grow so much. Move that same plant into open soil with sunlight and water, and it thrives. The seed hasn't changed. The DNA is the same. What changed was the environment that allowed its potential to unfold. Humans are no different. You could have all the potential in the world, but if you stay in an environment that suffocates growth, you'll never see it. But change your environment, and suddenly, you're capable of things you didn't even believe were possible. This is why I always tell people, don't just set goals, set up environments. Don't just say you want to build a new habit. Create a space and a circle that make that habit inevitable. Because let's face it, you can't swim upstream forever. Eventually, the current of your environment will carry you. The only question is, where is it carrying you? Now, I know some of you are thinking, but I can't just change my whole environment overnight. And you're right, but you don't have to. Start small. Rearrange your immediate space. Clean your desk. Put healthier options in your fridge. Limit your digital distractions. Seek out one person who inspires you and spend more time with them. Little by little, you start shifting the current in your favor. And as it shifts, the effort decreases. You'll find yourself doing the right things not because you forced yourself, but because the environment made it natural. And that's the real power here. When you get this right, it stops feeling like discipline. It starts feeling automatic. Because the truth is, people don't fail because they lack desire. They fail because they're swimming in an environment designed to sabotage them. So here's my challenge for you. Take an honest look at your environment right now. Your home, your workspace, your daily routines, even your relationships. Ask yourself, is this environment pulling me closer to the life I want? Or is it quietly pushing me away from it? And if the answer isn't what you want, change something. Don't wait for motivation to save you. Build an environment that supports you, because once you do, you won't need to rely on sheer willpower anymore. The environment will carry you forward. And remember this, your habits are the seeds, but your environment is the soil. Even the strongest seed can't grow in the wrong soil. Change the soil and you change your life. We've talked about small habits. We've talked about the power of environment. Now we need to take it even deeper, because there's a level of habit building that goes beyond action, beyond routine, beyond even your environment. It's the level of identity. And this right here is where lasting change is truly born. Let me put it bluntly, the strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. If you want to know why you keep falling back into the same old patterns, why you diet but end up right back where you started, why you make progress in your career only to sabotage yourself, why you say you want one thing but keep doing another, the answer is almost always identity. You can fight with habits. You can wrestle with your environment. You can push through with sheer willpower. But if deep down you don't believe you're the kind of person who deserves success, who lives at a high standard, who naturally follows through, you will always find a way back to the level of your identity. Think about it. If you identify as someone who's struggling with their weight, no diet will save you. You'll lose a few pounds, then you'll gain it back. If you see yourself as someone who's just not good with money, no financial plan will stick. You'll sabotage yourself. If you call yourself lazy, undisciplined,
A procrastinator, guess what?
your actions will align with that belief every single time, no matter how motivated you felt yesterday. On the flip side, if your identity is solid, the habit sticks almost effortlessly. The smoker who says, I'm trying to quit, is reinforcing the identity of a smoker who struggles. The person who says, I don't smoke, is reinforcing the identity of a non-smoker. Same action, different identity. And the identity determines the outcome. See, the world tells you to focus on outcomes. Lose 20 pounds. Earn 6 figures. Run a marathon. That's all outcome-based. And there's nothing wrong with outcomes. They give us direction. But the truth is, outcome-based habits rarely last. Why? Because they don't change who you are. They only change what you do for a little while. And if what you're doing conflicts with who you believe you are, identity wins every time. Winners flip this equation. They build identity-based habits. They stop asking, what do I want to achieve? And start asking, who do I want to become? Because once you shift identity, the habits follow naturally. Let's take fitness as an example. If your goal is, I want to lose 20 pounds, you might work out for a few months, restrict your calories, and see some progress. But if at your core you still see yourself as someone who struggles with weight, you'll find ways to slide back. But if your identity becomes, I am an athlete, I am the kind of person who moves my body daily and fuels it with purpose, suddenly your actions align without forcing it. You don't have to push yourself to work out. You do it because that's what athletes do. It's who you are. Or think about business. If your goal is, I want to make more money, maybe you hustle for a few months, land a couple of deals, see your income rise. But if your identity is still, I'm not really a leader, I'm not a business person, you'll find ways to sabotage that progress. But when your identity becomes, I am a creator of value, I am a leader, I am an entrepreneur who makes things happen, you begin making decisions in alignment with that belief. You take risks. You step up. You handle challenges differently. And success follows not because you forced it, but because you became it. Psychology confirms this. There's a concept called self-concept consistency. It's the idea that our brains crave alignment between our actions and our self-image. When there's a gap, we feel discomfort, and we either raise our behavior to match our identity or lower our identity to justify our behavior. That's why so many people who win the lottery end up broke again within a few years. Their bank account changed, but their identity didn't. They never became someone who manages wealth, so they found a way to return to what felt familiar. Philosophically, this idea is ancient. In the Bhagavad Gita, it said, "A man is made by his belief. As he believes, so he is." Thousands of years ago, they understood that identity shapes destiny. In modern terms, neuroscience tells us the same thing. Your brain is a prediction machine. It constantly predicts who you are and acts accordingly. Change the prediction, change the belief, and your behavior shifts to match it. So the question is, how do you change identity? How do you become someone new, not just do something new? The answer is through repeated evidence. Every small habit you build isn't just an action. It's a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Every time you work out, you're casting a vote for, I'm an athlete. Every time you save money, you're casting a vote for, I'm financially disciplined. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're casting a vote for, I'm reliable. I can count on me. At first, those votes may feel weak. Maybe you spent years reinforcing the opposite identity. But votes add up. And over time, the scale tips. Eventually, the identity locks in. And once it does, you no longer need motivation. Because it's not something you do anymore. It's someone you are. Let me share a story. A man I worked with used to describe himself as a procrastinator. His entire life, he believed he just couldn't follow through. He'd start things, stop, start again, and stop again. But he decided to test a new approach. Instead of telling himself, I need to stop procrastinating, he started saying, I'm the kind of person who finishes what I start. He built small habits to prove it, finishing small tasks daily, even when they felt insignificant. Over time, the evidence piled up. Months later, he told me, I don't even think about procrastination anymore. It's not me. I finish things. His entire life changed not because he forced himself, but because he changed who he believed he was. That's the power of identity-based habits. They don't just change your behavior. They transform your sense of self. And when you change who you are, you change what's possible for you. Now, some of you may be wondering, but what if my current identity is deeply ingrained? What if I've spent decades seeing myself a certain way? Here's the good news. Identity is not fixed. You're not a slave to your past. You can rewrite the story you tell about yourself. But it doesn't happen through one declaration. It happens through consistent evidence. Start small. Give yourself proof. Cast the votes. Build the identity brick by brick until it becomes unshakable. And here's the most important part. Choose your identity consciously. Most people don't. They inherit it from parents, teachers, peers, society. They carry labels given to them. Lazy, shy, average, not smart enough, not disciplined enough. And they live their whole lives wearing someone else's story. Don't do that. Decide who you are. Declare and then prove it to yourself every day through your habits. Because the truth is this, your identity is not what happened to you. It's not the mistakes you made. It's not the labels you were given. Your identity is who you decide to become from this moment forward. And once you make that decision and back it with evidence, the world will start to treat you differently. Not because the world changed, but because you did. So here's the challenge. Stop asking, who do I need to do? Start asking, who do I want to be? And then build the habits that align with that answer. Because at the end of the day, outcomes fade. Identities last. And the person you believe you are will always win. So let me leave you with this. Don't just build habits to change what you do. Build them to change who you are. Because once you become the person who naturally lives at the level you desire, success stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody. One of the greatest hidden killers of progress in today's world isn't lack of motivation, and it isn't even lack of discipline. It's decision fatigue. You know what I'm talking about. That constant drain of energy that comes from making hundreds, even thousands of little choices every single day. What to eat, what to wear, what to say in that email. Should you work out an hour later? Should you call that client today or tomorrow? From the moment you wake up, your brain is bombarded with decisions. And here's what most people don't realize. Your brain's ability to make high-quality decisions is a limited resource. It's like a battery. Every choice you make, and no matter how small, drains some of that power. And when that battery runs low, you don't make your best choices anymore. You don't choose growth. You don't choose discipline. Choose what's easy. You grab the junk food. You skip the workout. You put off the important call. Not because you don't care, not because you're lazy, but because your decision-making energy is gone. And once it's gone, you fall back into autopilot. And autopilot rarely leads you to greatness. Now, here's where winners separate themselves from the crowd. They understand this principle. If you want to preserve your energy for the decisions that truly matter, you've got to eliminate unnecessary choices. And the way you eliminate unnecessary choices is through habits. Habits are the ultimate weapon against decision fatigue. They take important actions out of the realm of, should I? And into the realm of, this is just what I do. Think about something as simple as brushing your teeth. You don't wake up every morning asking yourself, should I brush my teeth today? You don't wrestle with the pros and cons. You don't wait to feel motivated. You just do it. And because you just do it, your teeth stay healthy. Now, imagine if other areas of your life were just as automatic. Imagine if eating well wasn't a debate. If working out wasn't a question. If making that sales call wasn't up for negotiation. How much energy would that free up for the decisions that actually require your creativity, your leadership, your focus? This is why some of the world's most successful people, leaders, entrepreneurs, athletes, deliberately reduce the number of small, meaningless decisions they make. There's a reason why some wear the same style of clothes every day. It's not about fashion. It's about eliminating one more decision so their brain can be fully present for the choices that move the needle. They understand that willpower is finite. Focus is finite. And if you waste it on the trivial, you won't have enough left for the transformational. Psychologists have studied this for years. Even they found that people who rely on willpower alone to make good decisions throughout the day almost always falter by the evening. That's why you're more likely to skip the gym after work than the morning. That's why diets often fail at night. Your brain has been making decisions all day long, and it's exhausted. But here's the thing, habits don't drain you. Once something becomes automatic, it doesn't cost you the same mental energy. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like part of who you are. And this brings us back to identity. Because when your habits are tied to identity, the decisions disappear. If you see yourself as an athlete, you don't decide whether to work out. You train. If you see yourself as a leader, even though it's not reality, and you don't decide whether to take responsibility, you step up. If you see yourself as a person who keeps promises, and you don't decide whether to follow through, you just do it. That's the real freedom habits give you. They don't just save you from bad choices. They liberate you from the weight of constant choice. Let's make this real. Think about your mornings. For most people, mornings are chaos. The alarm goes off, and they negotiate with themselves. Should I get up now or hit snooze? They finally get up, then they wonder, what should I eat for breakfast? Should I work out today? Should I check my phone? What do I wear? By the time they're ready to start their day, they've already burned through a huge portion of their decision-making energy. And then they wonder why they feel drained by 11 a.m. Contrast that with someone who's designed their morning as a series of habits. They wake up at the same time every day. Without negotiation, they eat the same nutritious breakfast they prepped the night before. Their workout clothes are already laid out, so there's no debate. They start the day not by reacting, but by executing a series of decisions they don't have to think about anymore. By 9 a.m., they've already accomplished more than most people do by noon, and they still have a full tank of energy for the rest of the day. That's the difference. One life is ruled by decision fatigue, the other is ruled by habits. And the second life is the one where you build momentum, where you feel powerful, where your best energy goes to your highest goals instead of being drained by trivial choices. Now, philosophically, this runs deep. The Stoics used to say, freedom is found in discipline. On the surface, that sounds like a paradox. How can discipline equal freedom? But when you live it, you understand. When you discipline yourself with the right habits, you free yourself from the tyranny of constant decision-making. You stop being a slave to mood, to circumstance, to the endless noise of options. You walk into your day knowing exactly what matters and moving toward it automatically. That's true freedom. And here's something most people don't realize. Decision fatigue doesn't just drain your energy. It erodes your confidence. Because when you constantly wrestle with yourself, should I not? And you keep giving into the easier option, you start to doubt your own strength. But when habits handle the basics, you stop negotiating. You stop doubting. You start proving to yourself day after day that you can be trusted. And that trust builds unstoppable confidence. Let me ask you a question. And what would your life look like if the most important actions you know you need to take weren't even up for debate anymore? What if they were automatic, as natural as brushing your teeth? How much more would you accomplish? How much more energy would you have for the challenges that actually require creativity and leadership? Because that's the prize here. The point of building habits isn't just to do more. It's to do more of what matters. It's to free up your mental and emotional bandwidth so you can play the game at a higher level. And I'll tell you this, things, the people who achieve the most in life aren't necessarily the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who work the smartest. They've built systems, rituals, and habits that automate their success. So when their willpower runs low, and it will, because we're all human, they don't collapse. They keep moving forward because the path is already laid. So here's an invitation: stop wasting your energy on unnecessary decisions. Decide once. Build the habit. Lock it in. And then free your mind for the battles that actually matter. Because at the end of the day, success isn't about how many times you got motivated. It's about how many times you showed up without needing to be. And I'll leave you with this: habits are the armor that protect your energy. Build them well, and you'll have the strength to face every challenge without running dry. We've talked about motivation, small habits, environment, identity, and how habits free you from decision fatigue. But there's a final piece we need to bring this all together. The reason why winners invest so much in building habits in the first place. It's because habits create long-term freedom. Now, let me clarify that. Most people hear the word discipline or habit, and they think the opposite of freedom. They think rules, structure, restriction. They imagine life becoming robotic, rigid, stripped of joy. But that's not what true discipline does. Real discipline, expressed through consistent habits, doesn't lock you in. It sets you free. It gives you the freedom most people will never know. See, there are two kinds of freedom. The first is short-term freedom. The freedom to do what you want, when how you want. Eat whatever you feel like. Spend whatever you feel like. Skip responsibilities whenever you feel like. And let's be real, it feels good in the moment, but it comes with a cost. Because while you're free in the short term, even you're slowly building chains for the long term. The pounds add up, the debt piles up, the missed opportunities compound. And eventually, you're no longer free. You're trapped by your past choices. Then there's long-term freedom. This is the freedom winners play for. It's the freedom to live life on your terms, not just today, even but for decades to come. And that kind of freedom only comes when you build habits that protect your future. Think about your health. You can choose the short-term freedom of skipping workouts, eating whatever you crave, avoiding the hard effort. But down the line, that choice steals your freedom. You can't play with your kids. You can't travel with energy. You're chained to medications, to fatigue, to a body that limits you. On the other hand, if you build the habit of moving daily, fueling your body well, taking care of your health, yes, it requires effort now. But in the long run, it gives you the freedom to live fully. You get decades of energy. You get the ability to say yes to opportunities without wondering if your body can handle it. That's freedom. The same goes for money. You can choose the short-term freedom of spending every dollar you make, buying everything that gives you a moment of pleasure. But eventually, even that habit steals your long-term freedom. You become trapped by debt, by financial stress, by the inability to say yes to opportunities because you don't have the resources. But if you build the habit of saving, of investing, of living below your means, at first it feels restrictive. Maybe you can't buy everything you want right now. But in the long run, you gain the ultimate freedom, financial independence. The ability to do what you want, when you want, without asking permission. That's freedom. Let's talk about your mind. You can choose the short-term freedom of consuming endless entertainment, scrolling for hours, numbing your brain with distractions. But that habit steals your long-term freedom. It leaves you restless, unfilled, dependent on stimulation you can't control. But if you build the habit of reading, learning, reflecting, challenging your mind, yes, it takes discipline. But over time, you become someone who can think clearly, focus deeply, create solutions, and rise above the noise. You see the pattern? Short-term freedom often creates long-term slavery. Short-term discipline creates long-term freedom. And the bridge between the two is habit. Psychology explains why this works. Human beings are wired for instant gratification. Our brains evolved in environments where survival was about immediate needs. Food, shelter, safety. Long-term thinking wasn't necessary when life expectancy was short. But today, in a world where we can live decades longer, that wiring can become our prison if we don't master it. That's why so many people chase comfort and end up in chains. Habits allow us to override that wiring. They're like a contract we make with our future self. I'll give up a little comfort now so you can have a lot more freedom later. Philosophically, this isn't new. The Stoics taught it centuries ago. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master himself." Freedom, in their view, wasn't about doing whatever you wanted in the moment. It was about mastery, having the power to act according to reason, not impulse. In other words, real freedom comes when you're no longer a slave to your cravings, your distractions. And habits are the tools that build that mastery. Let me give you an example that makes this real. Picture 2 different mornings. In the first, you wake up late, hit snooze a few times, scroll on your phone for half an hour, skip breakfast, rush out the door stressed and unprepared. In that moment, you felt free. You did whatever you wanted. But now the entire day owns you. You're behind schedule, re-anxious, chasing instead of creating. You're not free. Now picture the second morning. You wake up on time. You follow a simple morning routine. Maybe exercise, maybe reading, maybe journaling. You feel your body, set your priorities, and step into the day with clarity. Yes, in that first moment, it required discipline. You didn't just do whatever your mood dictated. But now the entire day is yours. You own your time. You're focused, intentional, powerful. That's freedom. And the difference wasn't motivation. It was habit. This is why winners don't wait for motivation. They build habits because they understand that every disciplined choice today is buying them freedom tomorrow. They're not playing for the next hour. They're playing for the next decade. Now, let's talk about the cost of not doing this, because sometimes the best way to see the value of a habit is to look at the price of not having it. Imagine your life 10 years from now if you change nothing. The same health choices, the same financial patterns, the same lack of focus. Where does that lead? Are you freer or are you more trapped? Most people don't want to ask themselves a question because the answer is uncomfortable. But if you're serious about freedom, you've got to face it. And then imagine the opposite. Imagine your life 10 years from now if you commit to building just a handful of the right habits. Not 100, just a few. Moving your body daily. Feeding your mind with wisdom instead of noise. Saving and investing consistently. Being intentional about your environment. Where does that lead? What kind of freedom do you buy for your future self? The difference is night and day. And the gap is built on the small habits you choose today. So here's the true thing. The future version of you, the one who's healthy, wealthy, confident, and free, is built right now in the daily disciplined habits you create. And if you choose not to build them, you're not just making a decision for today. You're making a decision that will chain or free you for years to come. This is why I say habits create long-term freedom, because they're not about taking something away from you. They're about giving something priceless to you. The ability to the life you actually want, not just the life that circumstances force on you. So I want you to ask yourself right now, what does freedom look like for you? Is it the freedom to travel? The freedom to wake up every day with energy? The freedom to provide for your family without stress? The freedom to work you love instead of work you tolerate? Whatever that vision is, understand this, even won't come from hoping, and it won't come from waiting for motivation. It will come from the habits you build starting today. And I'll leave you with this. The chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken. Build the right habits now, and those chains become your wings. That's the freedom winners live for.